My mother-in-law forced me to move out on the third day after my sister-in-law's wedding. Her reasoning was that since I earned a high salary, I should rent my own place. I moved out that very night and immediately cut off all monthly allowances. My husband's family went crazy, blowing up my phone with 352 missed calls. It sounds absurd, but it happened to me, Vivian. I'm 30 years old, an office worker with a monthly take-home salary of about $6,000. I thought my life was stable, but little did I know I had been turned into a walking ATM for my husband's family. That evening, just after getting off work, I was planning to cook a warm dinner for the whole family. I hadn't even changed out of my office skirt or taken off my high heels yet. I was sitting on the sofa in the living room, holding a cup of hot tea. Yet, with just a few sentences from my mother-in-law, Mrs. Hazel, my entire life felt like it was being suffocated. "I'll be straight with you, Vivian," she said. "By the end of this month, you need to move out and live on your own." Her voice was indifferent, her hands busy peeling a tangerine, as if she were discussing buying vegetables at the grocery store. I froze. "Mom, what do you mean?" I asked. Next to her sat my sister-in-law, Lana. She had only been married for 3 days. The scent of her wedding dress and fresh lipstick still seemed to linger. Lana was wearing a designer dress, absent-mindedly stroking her glittering manicured nails. She gave a slight nod, her lips curving into a faint, dismissive smile. "I've said it," Mrs. Hazel continued leisurely. "Our house has 4 bedrooms. From now on, Lana and her husband Vince will be staying here frequently. We can't very well let the newlyweds sleep on the sofa, can we? You earn nearly $6,000 a month. Renting a 1-bedroom apartment isn't difficult for you. You're young, and living closer to your workplace downtown would be more convenient." Those words slammed into my head. Since the day we got married, the mortgage payments for this house had been deducted from my bank account every single month. The renovation costs, the furniture money from the refrigerator to the sofa I was currently sitting on, were all paid for by the money I had gritted my teeth to save. And now, my mother-in-law was telling me to move out for convenience. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Mom, Nathan and I bought this house together. I pay half the mortgage every month. My name is on the bank loan contract. Why are you telling me to move out?" The person I called my husband, Nathan, was sitting opposite me. His eyes were glued to his phone, pretending to hear but not listen, pretending to see but not look. I turned to him, hoping he would say something to defend me, but he just mumbled incoherently. "Vivian, maybe moving out for a while would be okay," he finally said, not looking up. "With your salary, renting a place near the corporate park is convenient. We can figure things out later." I heard the word later and felt a chill run down my spine. Later? When? After his sister has a baby? After his family needs more money? Or after I'm exhausted and don't have a dime left? I looked straight at Mrs. Hazel. "Mom, 3 years ago when we got married, you said the family was struggling. I agreed not to ask for a fancy wedding and even gave $20,000 of my savings to renovate this house. You insisted the deed be in Nathan's name alone for simplicity. You said I was a daughter of the house, that you saw me as your own flesh and blood. Now you tell me to move out. What am I in this house?" My mother-in-law jutted her chin out, her voice turning harsh. "Don't start listing your contributions. I bought this house a long time ago. Having it in Nathan's name is correct. You've lived here without paying rent. I never charged you for room and board. Now asking you to rent a place outside isn't kicking you onto the street. You make $6,000 a month. Renting a place for $1,500 is nothing. It's cramped here, and Lana and Vince need space to give me grandchildren." Lana, sitting next to her, chimed in, her voice sweet but stinging. "Vivian, this house was bought by Nathan's parents ages ago. Now Nathan holds the title. Being a daughter-in-law makes you family, but I can't be pregnant and commuting from far away without a stable place to stay. You living closer to your company would be less tiring for you, right?" I gave a dry laugh. "So who has been paying the bank for 3 years? Try looking at the transfer statements and see whose name is on them. The money for repairs, for buying every single item in this house, came from my salary." Lana shrugged. "Well, Nathan works too. His money is family money. A daughter-in-law living here should be filial to the parents. You have to think of others." I turned to Nathan, clinging to a shred of hope one last time. Say something clear to me. Whose house is this? Is it ours, or is it just yours and your mother's? Nathan avoided my eyes, stammering. Technically, the deed is in my name, but Mom bought it originally. Don't speak to Mom like that. It's disrespectful. We are husband and wife. Assets are shared anyway. I felt something inside my chest shatter. So, for 3 years, everything I contributed was just supplementary charity for their family, while I remained an outsider who could be pushed out at any time. I looked straight at my mother-in-law, enunciating every word. If I leave this house, from today on, I will not put another cent into this property. No mortgage payments, no utility bills, no allowance for you, and no money for Lana. I will not spend another dime. Mrs. Hazel sneered. You think this family will starve without your money? Don't be arrogant. The money you earn is thanks to having a husband's support. Without marrying Nathan, let's see if you could afford a house. Lana laughed and jumped in. Vivian, don't think $6,000 is a huge deal. Without Nathan, you wouldn't have the social standing you have now. Don't make a scene or we won't be able to look at each other. I didn't argue further. I just silently stood up. My mind suddenly became very clear. The sweet words from our wedding day, I consider you my own daughter, this house is for both of you, now felt like ropes tightening around my neck. That night, I dragged my only suitcase to the middle of the room. After years of being a wife, my personal belongings were pitifully few. A few office suits, some books, 1 or 2 lipsticks. Everything else around me, from the curtains to the cabinets, was stuff I paid for but couldn't take with me. Nathan stood leaning against the doorframe, his voice tired. Vivian, don't overreact. Mom has a temper. Later, when she cools down, you can come back. I turned and looked straight at him. Answer me honestly. Do you consider me your wife, a partner to build a life with, or just someone to pay the mortgage? Nathan was silent. That silence was the clearest answer. I dragged my suitcase out of that house, walking down the stairs with my feet feeling strangely light. It wasn't the feeling of being kicked out anymore. It felt like I had finally escaped a glittering but suffocating golden cage. That night, I rented a small room near my company. Lying on the strange bed, I couldn't sleep. The first thing I did was open my banking app and cancel all automatic monthly transfers. The mortgage payment, Mrs. Hazel's allowance, Lana's spending money, the payments for Nathan's truck. Canceled successfully. The notifications popped up one by one. My heart ached, but I felt lighter. Then I dialed a number I hadn't used in a long time. Thea, a lawyer who was my senior in college. Thea, it's Vivian. I need to ask about divorce and asset division. Hanging up the phone, I stood by the window looking at the glittering yellow lights of the city. 3 years of marriage, and today was the first time I felt truly awake. The next morning the alarm went off, but not to wake me up to cook breakfast for my husband's family. I bolted up in the small rental room. Sunlight pierced through the tiny window pane, dust motes dancing in the air, but I found it easier to breathe than ever before. I made some instant oatmeal, ate quickly, then changed and went to the office. As soon as I entered the workspace, my young assistant Lynn widened her eyes. Vivian, you look completely different today. Your aura is amazing. Something good happen? I smiled vaguely. Nothing much. Just that from today, I decided to stop being a walking ATM for others. Lynn didn't understand. She just smiled along. I didn't explain further. I had important work to do. At 10 a.m., I asked for a brief leave and went straight to the bank branch where I held my accounts. The relationship manager, Sean, looked at me in surprise. Vivian, you've been so busy lately, haven't seen you in ages. I sat down, clasping my hands together to stop them from shaking. Sean, today I want to do 2 things. 1, permanently lock any supplementary cards linked to my account. 2, please print out all my statements for the last 3 years, every transfer transaction related to my husband and his family. Sean's face turned serious, dropping his social smile. Is this related to a dispute? I nodded. Yes. I need to clarify everything I've put into that house and given to his family. I don't want to rely on verbal claims when I go to court later. The printer whirred, pushing out sheet after sheet until they stacked up as thick as a hand. I held the stack of papers, scanning them, my hands turning cold. Every month, $2,500 for the mortgage, $500 for Mrs. Hazel's living expenses, $300 for Lana's pocket money, several transfers of $1,000 or $2,000 for Nathan to pay off friends, fix his car, or invest in random schemes. Added up over 3 years, the money I poured into my husband's house was over $100,000. I gave a dry laugh at myself. Turns out I wasn't a daughter-in-law. I was a living bank. Leaving the bank, I went straight to Thea's law office. Sitting in front of me was a woman a few years older, hair in a neat bun, eyes sharp but warm. She listened as I recounted everything from the wedding where I took no money, to paying for the renovation, to being kicked out because the house lacked rooms. As I told the story, I felt both angry and ashamed. Ashamed that I had been so easy. Thea asked clearly, "Who is on the house deed?" "Nathan, my husband." "But the mortgage contract has your signature as a co-borrower?" "Yes." "And the payments for the last 3 years came mostly from your account?" "Yes." "Do you have the statements?" I pushed the stack of papers toward her. Thea flipped through them for a moment, then nodded. In principle, a house bought before marriage and titled solely to Nathan is considered separate property. However, since the mortgage payments during the marriage were paid with community funds, specifically your salary, and your name is on the loan, there are strong grounds to claim an interest in the property. Especially if the renovation money and furniture came from you, that works in your favor. I sighed. I was stupid back then. I trusted people. I thought once married, his house was my house. Who knew I'd be kicked out like a stranger? Thea looked at me for a moment, then spoke slowly. "Vivian, your mistake wasn't trusting people. Everyone who gets married wants to believe they chose right. The mistake was not keeping a way out for yourself. But you're awake now, and it's not too late. You have a stable job, health, and your parents are still alive. Trust me, many people are in much worse situations." "What should I do first?" I asked. "First, absolutely no more money to his family. Second, gather all evidence, statements, renovation invoices, loan contracts, every money transfer text message. Third, don't make a fuss for now. Let them think you are weak, that you are soft. When we file for divorce and asset division, we go straight through the court. As for being kicked out," Thea shrugged. "It's hearsay right now. We don't have a recording, but telling the judge about the behavior is still a factor. The most important thing is the money and assets." I sat quietly for a moment, then asked the hardest thing. "Thea, am I really getting divorced? Do you want to go back?" she asked. I was silent. In my head, I saw Nathan looking down when his mother told me to leave. I saw him nonchalantly letting me pay for everything without ever asking if I was tired. I saw the 352 missed calls only after I cut the money off. Finally, I shook my head. "No, I don't want to live another day in that house." Then you have to be ruthless. Divorce isn't a failure. It's stopping before they crush your self-respect completely. I will help you, but the hardest part is yours. Absolutely no soft-heartedness. I took a deep breath and nodded. Do what needs to be done. I accept it. That afternoon, as soon as I got back to the company, my phone vibrated incessantly. First Nathan, then Mrs. Hazel, then strange numbers, then relatives of his family people, whose names I hadn't even learned since the wedding. "Why are you making a scene? Moving out on your own? Come home," Mrs. Hazel's voice screeched over the phone. "I'm not making a scene. I just moved out of a place that doesn't consider me family," I replied calmly. Mrs. Hazel immediately changed her attitude, screaming, "Don't you dare push your luck. If you dare demand a share of the house, I'll let the whole neighborhood know you are greedy and ungrateful." I laughed dryly. "Whatever house is yours, you keep. I'm just claiming back what I put in." I hung up, leaned back in my chair, and exhaled. The phone rang again, this time a number I didn't know. I answered and heard a man's hesitant voice. "Vivian? It's Connor, Nathan's cousin." "I'll be honest. Nathan's mom called me today asking me to drive around and follow you. To see where you go, who you meet. I couldn't do it, so I'm calling to warn you. I was stunned. Mom asked you to stalk me? Yeah, she said. If that woman is having an affair with anyone, film it for me. I'll ruin her reputation. Listening to her gave me chills. I owe you for the time you helped my wife get to the hospital, so I couldn't go through with it. Be careful. Thank you, Connor. I hung up, my hands trembling. So, they didn't just want to kick me out, they wanted to smear me. That night, in the cramped rental room, I wrote down a list of everything I needed to do for the first time. Bank, lawyer, evidence, police, if threatened, maintain distance from men to avoid giving them ammo. As each line appeared on the paper, I felt myself transforming from a gentle wife and obedient daughter-in-law into a woman who knew how to protect herself. Perhaps this was the hardest part of life, learning to stand tall without waiting for anyone to reach out a hand. After my doctor's appointment that day, I clutched the ultrasound report, my mind reeling. Dr. Davis said the fetal metrics were stable, the heartbeat strong, size appropriate for the gestational age. He just advised me to eat well, rest more, and limit stress. But paradoxically, I walked out of the clinic with a paper full of beautiful numbers, yet my heart felt heavy like I had received a suspended sentence rather than good news. I sat in the back of a taxi, hugging my stomach, watching the rows of houses recede behind the glass. I felt like I was sitting on a train with no known destination. Who would get off first? Who would stay until the end? The driver turned to ask if I had a preferred route to avoid traffic. I gave a small laugh and told him any way was fine, as long as I got home safely. Home. Just thinking of that word made my heart constrict. The apartment where Nathan and I had lived for 3 years used to be a place full of laughter and dreams. Now, it had become a cramped concrete box. A place where every meal was a silent negotiation, every night lying down was a cold gap between two spouses. He still went to work regularly, still brought money home, though less now, still asked if I was tired or craving anything. But behind those questions was an invisible wall. I knocked forever, but no one answered sincerely. The taxi stopped in front of the condo complex. I paid and stepped out. The smell of heat rising from the cement made me slightly dizzy. The elevator was cramped, the polished steel reflecting my pale face. You have to be happy. You're going to be a mom, I whispered to myself, trying to force the corners of my mouth up, but the smile was distorted, revealing only strain. The apartment door opened. The familiar smell of the small kitchen, of the cheap floor cleaner, of the snake plant my mom sent from the countryside sitting in the corner of the living room, it all rushed out, making my chest unexpectedly warm. At least this house was still the only place I could relax, allowed to be weak, allowed to be silent without explaining anything to anyone. I changed my slippers, put the document folder on the table, and went into the kitchen to pour myself a glass of warm water, a habit every time I came back from the hospital. The water flowed from the tap, a small trickling sound that felt like time indifferently passing, ignoring the panic in my heart. The phone on the table vibrated. It was a text from him. Done with the checkup? What did the doctor say? My fingers glided over the screen. Stable. Baby is developing well. I paused for a moment, then added, Will you be home for dinner tonight? The other side showed read. The typing bubbles blinked for a moment, then appeared. Drinking with clients. Will be late. Eat first, don't wait. The phrase "don't wait" was like a small nail tapping into my heart. Not an intense pain, but a dull, aching throb. I looked at the screen, wanting to type another line. Do you still want this baby? But in the end, I deleted it all, sending only an okay emoji. I put the phone down, my hand unconsciously resting on my belly. It's okay, baby. Mom is still here. I spoke softly, as if the tiny being could understand. Suddenly, I remembered my mother's eyes during our video call the other day, a look of both joy and worry when I announced the pregnancy. Now that you have a child, you have to take care of yourself, honey. Other things can be figured out slowly. Don't make it too hard on your husband. Mom was always like that, always thinking of others first, even when it was clear I was the one being abandoned in my own marriage. The afternoon passed slowly. I pulled out the basket of vegetables Mom had sent, picking through each stem, washing them under the tap, cutting them small, preparing dinner even though I knew I would likely eat alone again. These repetitive tasks might be boring to others, but for me, they were a way to stop myself from thinking too much. Every time the knife touched the cutting board, I tried to slice away a little more anxiety. Yet, the harder I tried to be calm, the more my mind went back to that evening, the evening my trust was skewed. The strange message, the female voice on the other end, Nathan's stammering explanation. I had thought that just having a child would make him return to how he was before, that he would ignore any fleeting external emotions. But for the past 16 weeks, the only thing changing was my body. His heart seemed to be somewhere far away that I couldn't reach. While I was busy in the kitchen, the doorbell rang. Startled, I wiped my hands on the towel and went to open it. It was Hannah, the neighbor from the adjacent apartment, holding a bag of fruit. She smiled brightly. "Heard you're pregnant. Stopped by to give you some apples. And to tell you a few things, first-time pregnancies usually come with a lot of random worries." I invited her in and poured water. She sat down and asked all sorts of things. How many weeks? Are you eating well? Any morning sickness? Is the husband taking care of you? I mumbled through it, saying he was busy but caring. I didn't have the courage to tell the truth, that sometimes I felt like I was walking the path of motherhood alone. Hannah suddenly lowered her voice. "Hey, don't get mad at me for being nosy. But the other day, I saw your husband standing in the lobby with some young woman. Heavy makeup, laughing and talking quite intimately. I thought maybe it was just a business partner, but as a woman, the way she looked at him was strange. Wouldn't hurt to pay a little attention." Hearing this, my heart felt squeezed. So, it wasn't just me sensing the changes. My suspicions weren't entirely paranoid delusions. I tried to keep a calm face, thanked her, exchanged a few pleasantries, and saw her out. The door closed, and the house sank into silence, leaving only the ticking of the wall clock. I leaned back against the door, sliding down to the floor, hugging my belly. "If one day Mom has to choose between keeping you or letting go to leave this place, will you blame me?" I asked unconsciously, tears starting to flow. I didn't want my child born into a rotting marriage where its mother had to swallow every word and meal in silence. But I didn't have the courage to think about being a single mother when I was used to relying on a support, even if that support was now shaking. That evening I set the table. 3 simple dishes: vegetable soup, braised fish, fried eggs. The chair opposite was empty. I tried to eat, but the rice stuck in my throat. The clock showed 9, then 10. Still no sign of him. The phone was silent, no call, no text saying he'd be late or sleeping elsewhere. I washed the dishes, tidied up, turned on the nightlight in the living room, and sat on the sofa, hugging a pillow, waiting. My stomach began to feel tight, a slight pulling sensation spreading from my lower back to my lower abdomen. I panicked slightly, hurriedly lying on my left side as the doctor instructed, breathing deeply. After a while, the tension eased, leaving only exhaustion. Near midnight, the sound of a key turning in the lock echoed harshly. Nathan walked in, the smell of alcohol and cigarette smoke reeking off him. He saw me still sitting there and paused slightly. "Why aren't you asleep yet?" I stood up, my voice hoarse. "I was waiting for you. And I went to the doctor today." He nodded, taking off his shoes, tossing the keys on the table, and collapsing onto the chair. "What did the doctor say?" I sat on the edge of the chair, clasping my hands. "Stable. Baby is healthy. But the doctor said I need to avoid stress, need to rest, keep my mental state stable." I hesitated, gathering all my courage. "Can you drink less and come home earlier? I'm scared. If something happens to the baby." He closed his eyes, rubbing his forehead. "I'm trying too. Work is just like this now, entertaining clients constantly. Don't make it hard for me. You're pregnant. Just worry about your health. Don't think about nonsense." The phrase "don't think about nonsense" was like a blade cutting through all my efforts to share. I looked at him and suddenly felt a distance between us, not just a few steps, but a deep abyss. That night, he slept with his back to me. His light snoring was rhythmic. My eyes were wide open in the dark. A terrifying thought flashed through my mind. If I don't actively do something, maybe things will get much worse. Not just for me, but for the baby. Perhaps it was time to face the truth, to find out exactly what he was hiding, instead of continuing to deceive myself with vague hopes. I placed my hand on my belly, whispering, "Mom promises, no matter the circumstances you grow up in, I won't let you witness a weak mother who only knows how to cry." Somewhere deep inside, a very small seed of courage was quietly cracking open. I didn't know where I would start or what the price would be, but I understood that tonight was the last time I allowed myself to sit still and wait. I woke up at 6 a.m. Even though I had been awake almost all night, my body heavy as lead and my head spinning, my hands fumbled through the routine. I sat up slowly, placed my feet on the floor, and breathed deeply so my stomach wouldn't cramp. Early morning light filtered through the thin blinds, casting pale yellow streaks on the floor, making the room look strangely peaceful. If not for the dark clouds piling up in my heart, I might have found this morning beautiful. But the pressure of what was happening made me just want to lie back down and disappear for a few hours. Nathan was still asleep, facing away from me, breathing evenly. Last night, after I mentioned the doctor's visit, he just mumbled and fell asleep instantly. I looked at his back for a long time, trying to find in my memory the moment when the distance between us began to swell to this size. Maybe a few months ago, when his late nights became normal. Maybe further back, when he started taking calls on the balcony instead of in front of me. Or maybe it all started the day I told him I was pregnant. Instead of joy, his eyes had shown a fleeting hesitation, an expression I still hadn't forgotten. I quietly left the bed and went to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. The smell of hot rice rising, the scent of ginger from the warm tea spreading gently in the air, it almost made me want to cry. I don't know why the simplest things make people feel so small and lost. I made porridge for myself, the dish the doctor said was good for the stomach in the early stages, and brewed a cup of black coffee for him as usual. A habit from when we dated, when we were newlyweds, when we still called each other by gentle names. I put the coffee cup on the table and realized my hand was shaking slightly. Nathan walked out into the living room, his face still masking sleepiness, hair messy. He saw the coffee, gave a slight grunt, and sat down on the sofa, opening his phone. Not a single question about whether I slept well or if my stomach still hurt. I didn't say anything either. I just ladled a small bowl of porridge and sat at the dining table opposite him. Between us lay the ticking of the clock and a vague distance no one dared to point out. After eating a few spoonfuls, I spoke softly. "I'm taking half the day off today. I'm a bit tired." He nodded, eyes still glued to the screen. "Yeah, up to you." I controlled my voice. "Nathan, can you come home early tonight? I want to talk to you." He paused for a moment, then replied, his voice very calm. "I'll see. Lots of work." Then he stood up, put on a dress shirt, sprayed some cologne, gathered his things, and left in a hurry. I instinctively walked to the door to see him off, but stopped at the threshold. I no longer had the energy to play the gentle wife, ready to run out and lock the door whenever her husband left. The door closed on its own behind him, leaving an emptiness that was terrifying. I sat down on the sofa, hand on my belly. The life growing inside me was still so small that its heartbeat could only be heard through an ultrasound machine, not yet felt clearly. But I felt it demanding that I be strong. That was both a source of motivation and a burden. I was afraid any decision I made would affect the baby, making it suffer. But if I continued living like this, I would be the first one to hurt the child. I took a deep breath and opened the drawer under the table, taking out the small brown notebook I used to list my tasks. I began writing down items one by one in small, neat handwriting. Check bank statements. Print transaction messages with him. Contact attorney Thea to schedule the next meeting. Observe his changes again, but absolutely do not act rashly. Keep mental state stable. Avoid letting psychology affect the baby. Writing this far, my hand stopped. Part of me wanted to add a sixth line, ask him straight out if he still loves me, but I erased it immediately. I knew well that if I asked that now, he would only have two choices: lie to avoid trouble, or remain silent to avoid responsibility. Neither would help me find the truth. Around 9 a.m., I received a call from Thea. She said she had reviewed all the statements I sent the other day and wanted to meet me today if possible. I agreed and changed clothes, putting on a long coat to cover my drooping belly, which at 16 weeks wasn't showing much. Down in the lobby, Bob the security guard nodded in greeting. I tried to respond with a slight smile, but deep down, I just wanted to leave this place as fast as possible. On the way to Thea's office, I received a text from a strange number. Vivian, yesterday I saw your husband with that woman again. They took a taxi, didn't head toward the company. I pulled the car over, heart pounding. The phone number was Hannah's, my neighbor. The person I didn't think would pay this much attention. I thanked her but also reminded her not to tell anyone else. I didn't want the exposure to make him cautious. When I met Thea, she looked at me for a long time before speaking. Vivian, I'm going to ask a question you must answer honestly. Are you ready to leave this marriage if the truth isn't what you hope? I clenched my hands, nails digging into my skin. Then I nodded. Yes, I just need to keep the baby safe and get back what I put in. Thea smiled slightly. Good. Then the next step is we must clearly determine separate and common property and see if his behavior affects your rights. But before that, I want you to stay calm. Don't let him know you are secretly preparing. I nodded. I felt a bit anxious, but also felt myself becoming more awake. Leaving the office, it was already noon. I stood under the eaves, watching the hurried stream of people, and suddenly realized a feeling of relief in my chest. Not because everything was done, but because I knew I was going in the right direction. Returning to the condo, I opened the door and stepped into the living room. Suddenly, I saw something that made me freeze. Nathan's tie was lying on the sofa, but it wasn't the color he usually wore. I picked it up to look closely. On the fabric was a smudge of light pink makeup powder. I pressed the tie against my sleeve. Definitely not my powder. My whole body went cold. I put the tie down on the table, my heart filled with a choking sensation. The scattered suspicions from all this time suddenly coalesced into a truth with a shape. I sat down on the chair, placing my hand on my belly. Baby, maybe Mom already knows what to do. I sat silently on the sofa, fingers unconsciously tracing the smudge of pink powder on his tie. A small smear, yet like a cold, sharp, indifferent knife, it cut through the fragile self-assurance I had tried to build over the past months. Something inside me collapsed, but strangely, I didn't burst into tears like previous times. Perhaps because up to this very second, my heart had prepared for the worst. I just didn't expect the evidence to arrive so quickly, lying right there on the familiar sofa, one step away from me. I placed the tie on the table, inhaled deeply, and walked into the bathroom, letting cold water run over my wrists the way the doctor advised whenever stress became too much. The water ran. I heard my heart beating clearly, heavy but steady rhythms. I looked in the mirror. The face of a 30-year-old woman, but with eyes heavy like she was 40, cheekbones slightly pale from lack of sleep, lips colorless, and a lower abdomen slightly protruding like a gentle reminder, "Baby is here, Mom, don't collapse." I turned off the tap, dried my hands, and returned to the living room. I took a small box, put the tie inside, and placed yesterday's ultrasound paper in with it. I wanted to see clearly the two most opposing things in my life. On this side was life growing. On the other side was a rotting truth. Around noon, my phone vibrated. It was him. "Did you eat yet?" I looked at the screen for a while, then replied very briefly, "Yes." Then he texted again. "Meeting clients this afternoon. Will probably be late tonight. Don't wait." I put the phone aside, not answering anymore. The 4 words "don't wait" had repeated so many times I was used to it, but today felt different. I no longer wanted to wait, no longer wanted to find reasons to forgive, no longer wanted to keep a marriage that only I was trying to hold on to. I took out my notebook and ruled a new line. 6. Find the truth but do not confront. Just record. In the afternoon, I put food in the pot to warm up, then opened the door to leave. I didn't want to sit still in that house where every wall bore the shadow of suspicion. I took a taxi to a quiet cafe with large glass windows looking down at the street. I chose a table near the corner, ordered a juice, then opened my phone to find Hannah's number. I texted, "Hannah, the other day you said you saw my husband with a girl. Can you tell me more details?" She replied almost instantly, as if she had been waiting for me to ask. I didn't dare say much the other day, afraid you'd be upset, but yes, I saw them twice. First time in the lobby, second time 3 days ago. They went together to the parking lot behind the C-Mart. Definitely not a friend. The look in her eyes wasn't a business look. I read the last line over and over, not a business look. My chest ached, but I kept calm. I texted, "Can you help me? If you see them again, can you let me know? Thank you so much." Seconds later, she replied, "I'll keep an eye out. Take care of your health, don't get agitated." I thanked her again and put the phone down, a sadness passing through deeply. I sat for a while longer when the phone suddenly rang. Attorney Thea. "Vivian, I reviewed your documents. I want to ask, are you sure he has someone else?" I answered truthfully. "I don't dare conclude yet, but the signs are quite clear. If that's true, then in the divorce file, this is a very important detail. But you need clear evidence, not for revenge, but to protect your own rights and the baby's." Evidence. The word rang clearly in my head. I didn't want to turn into the kind of person who sneakily followed her husband, but I knew I had no other choice. That night, Nathan came home near 1 a.m. The smell of new cologne, alcohol, and a world he lived in that absolutely did not include me. He put the keys on the table, didn't turn on the light, but the moonlight outside was enough for me to see the lines on his face, tired, but not work-tired. He looked at me, trying to keep his voice calm. "Why are you still awake?" I replied, "I couldn't sleep." He was about to say something but just sighed, put his hand on his forehead, and leaned back on the sofa. I looked at him for a long time. The pain wasn't violent anymore. It became a prolonged, empty ache, like a foggy road I was forced to walk. "Nathan," I called softly. He turned his head. If one day you feel tired, feel like you want to stop, just say one sentence to me. That's enough. I don't want to become a burden to anyone." He frowned. "What are you saying? Thinking nonsense again?" I pursed my lips, asking nothing more. I knew if he was hiding something, he wouldn't say it now. I stood up, went into the bedroom, turned off the light, but didn't sleep immediately. I lay on my side, hand on my belly. The baby kicked very lightly, or maybe I imagined it. Whatever it was, the feeling made me steel myself, pulling sanity back. "Cannot be weak," I reminded myself again. Around 2 a.m., my phone lit up. A message from Hannah. "Vivian, are you awake? I think I just saw your husband and that woman near the Langham Hotel area. I'm not sure, but the silhouette looks just like him." My heart pounded. I looked toward the living room where he was sleeping soundly, or pretending to. I knew for sure a big truth was waiting for me to step out and face it. I placed my hand on my belly again, whispering, "Baby, Mom is about to be very strong." I sat bolt upright in bed as soon as Hannah's message appeared on the screen in the dark room. The light from the phone illuminated my face, pale, flat like water about to freeze. I looked toward the living room. He was still there, back turned to me, breathing deep and low, very much like someone in a deep sleep. But I had lived with him long enough to understand. When he truly slept, he usually shifted once lightly before falling under. Now, he lay impossibly still. I sat there for a few seconds, mind blank, then immediately calmed down in a strange way. Maybe when a person is pushed to the final limit, they no longer panic. They are left only with clarity, silence, and a very small but decisive voice ringing in their mind, "Time to know the truth." I grabbed my coat. My hands shook slightly, but my heart beat steadily. Strange enough that I didn't understand it myself. I didn't wake him. I didn't want dialogue, didn't want an argument. I just wanted to see with my own eyes. I texted back to Hannah, "Are you still near there? Are you sure he is with that girl?" She replied instantly, "I'm in the parking garage. I just saw them go into the alley behind the Langham. Vivian, are you sure you want to come?" I gripped the phone tight. "Stay back for me. I'm coming." I locked the door very softly, every movement light as if afraid to wake the past sleeping behind me. In the elevator, I saw my reflection in the steel, a woman 16 weeks pregnant, dark circles under eyes, lips pressed together, but in her gaze, suddenly something like determination. I called a taxi, speaking quietly. "Take me to the Langham Hotel." The driver looked at me via the rearview mirror, about to ask more, but seeing my expression, he stayed silent. The city late at night was still bright, neon signs flashing by like distorted streaks of light, each streak stretching out the exhaustion inside me. The car stopped a distance from the hotel. I stepped out, clutching my handbag strap, looking around. Hannah was standing under the shade of a tree, waving to signal. When I got close, she lowered her voice. "I'm not 100% sure, but the build is just like him." They went in from the side entrance, leading up to the terrace cafe. "Do you want to go inside?" I took a long breath. "I need to see clearly, but don't follow me. If you get seen, it's trouble." I walked into the hotel lobby. The smell of expensive perfume mixed with the cold air conditioning. I didn't take the elevator, I took the stairs. Step by step, light as a person afraid of startling her own heart. When I reached the second floor, where there was a cafe open late, I heard a small laugh, cool, very feminine. I stood behind a decorative partition, my heart stopping a beat. And the second floor. In front, under the warm, dim lights, Nathan was sitting opposite a young woman. Her hand was placed on his hand very naturally. On their lips were smiles that were absolutely not business. No, it can't be. I tried to stand still, but my hands were clenching into fists. Breath felt stuck in my throat. Not pain, but a kind of realization of truth that leaves a person with no energy left to feel emotion. I stepped back slightly. Didn't stand watching more. Didn't rush in. Didn't make a scene. I just needed that. Just needed to know. I turned around, walked very slowly down the stairs. With each step, I saw everything inside me not shattering as I expected. Instead, it ended like a door closing very gently, without a sound. Reaching the street, I texted Hannah a short sentence. "Thank you. Go home. I'm okay." She replied immediately. "Vivian, are you okay? You're pregnant." I looked at the text line, my heart feeling frighteningly light. "I'm not hurt. I'm just tired. I'm going home." The taxi took me back to the condo. When I reached my floor, I stood in front of the door for a long time. I didn't want to cry. I didn't want to fall. I put my hand on my belly. "Baby, Mom is here. Mom is strong enough to protect you." When I opened the door to enter, he was still lying there. I walked close to look carefully, breathing steady, face peaceful to the point of being fake. Impossible that he was drunk to the point of being this oblivious. He knew what time I came back. He knew I would see him in a state of doing nothing wrong, and he believed that by just staying silent like that, everything would drift away. I looked at him for a long time, a mild but deep boredom tightening around my heart. I went into the bedroom, locked the door. I took off my coat, lay on my side as the doctor instructed, hand on my belly. For the first time since knowing I was pregnant, I spoke this sentence in silence. "Baby, Mom will leave this life before it has a chance to hurt you." My tears fell, but this time not out of despair, but because I knew very clearly which path I needed to take. Before sleeping, I opened my phone, adding line number 7 to the plan notebook. "Start preparing divorce petition. Gather full evidence. Give him no chance to deny." I put the phone down, closed my eyes, hand gently squeezing my belly. "Don't worry, baby. From here on out, Mom chooses you first, not anyone else." I woke up before the sun had even risen. The pale blue light of early morning crept into the room through the slit in the curtains, casting a chilling color on the ceiling. I lay still for a few minutes, hand on my belly as if to ensure the baby was still there, still walking through every breath with me. Last night, after writing line number 7 inches the small notebook, I had drifted off in a state of both exhaustion and relief. But this morning, that relief was gone, replaced by a feeling like stepping onto a bridge with only one way forward, where I wasn't allowed to turn back. I sat up, feeling a bit dizzy but trying to breathe deeply. In the living room, he was still lying on the sofa. I could hear him shifting slightly. He wasn't sleeping deeply like last night. Perhaps he heard the noise in the bedroom. But he didn't open the door to find me, didn't ask where I went last night, didn't ask if I was tired, didn't ask anything. I opened the bedroom door and stepped out. He sat up, rubbing his face, faking a few movements to look like someone just waking up. "You're up early?" he asked, voice trying to sound normal. I looked at him, replying very softly, I couldn't sleep. He nodded, then stood up and went to the kitchen to pour water. He didn't look at the tie I had intentionally placed conspicuously on the table, the most visible spot, or he saw it but pretended not to. I didn't care to observe that anymore. "Want to eat anything this morning?" he asked as if last night hadn't happened. I replied, "I can take care of it." The air between us was thick and stagnant like winter lake water. Only the sound of the wall clock ticking, beat by beat, steady as a reminder that even if I tried to dodge, time was pushing me toward the final decision. Around 8 a.m., he put on his jacket to get ready for work. Before stepping out, he turned back, eyes searching. "Are you okay?" That question at this moment made me feel more tired than the most unintentionally silent words. I replied calmly, "I'm okay." He stood for a few more seconds as if wanting to ask more, but then nodded and closed the door. Right at that moment, I knew inside myself it was done. No more waiting, no more hope, no more holding on. I sat down at the table, opened the small notebook, and added the 8th line. 8. Think clearly about leaving this house before giving birth. Don't let the baby grow up in a silence full of cracks. Then I called Thea. "Thea, I want to see you this afternoon. I have evidence." She asked immediately, "Can you stay calm?" "I'm calmer than I thought," I said. After hanging up, I sat for a while looking at the house I had put so much effort into renovating. Every corner of the kitchen, every item, every snake plant my mom sent. Everything had my handprints, my smell, the warmth of the days I tried to turn this place into a home. But looking back now, I asked myself, a home for whom? For me? Or just for a man who walked out and in without caring if I was there or not? I stood up and gathered a few necessary things. Ultrasound papers, prenatal records, bank loan contracts, printed statements, and the box containing the tie with the powder smudge. I put everything in my bag, looking around one last time before leaving the house. The elevator took me down to the lobby. The security guard nodded hello, but I just smiled slightly and walked straight out. I felt the ground under my feet soften, not from weakness, but because a decision was growing heavier with every step. At noon, I went to a small park near Thea's office. I sat on a stone bench. My belly felt heavy, so I leaned back and rubbed it gently. The wind blew through the canopy overhead, carrying the scent of fresh grass and a bit of Sunday. A rare feeling of peace made me close my eyes. A moment later, I opened my eyes to watch children laughing and playing on the playground. Children are always pure and honest. They know nothing of the chaos of the adult world. I instinctively placed my hand on my belly, whispering, "Baby," later on, "Mom won't let you witness the things Mom has endured." At the appointment time, I walked into Thea's office. She looked at the bag of documents, looked at my eyes, then said immediately, "What did you find?" I placed the box on the table. I saw it with my own eyes. No more doubts. She opened the box, looked at the powder smudge, looked at the ultrasound paper I placed next to it. Her eyes lowered, but her voice remained alert. "Vivian, just let me verify one last time. Are you choosing divorce because you want to stop? Or are you choosing it because you're hurt?" I replied instantly, "No need to think. For the baby, and because I don't want to live the rest of my life in a marriage where I have to swallow everything." She nodded, then opened her laptop, beginning to ask me every detail. The time he changed, the late nights, the strange texts, the distant attitude. I recounted everything one by one, voice steady and clear, no longer choking, no longer shaking. She recorded it, organized it into sections, then said, "I will prepare the petition for you, but you need one more thing. Take a picture of him and her." "Vivian, I know this is painful, but without a photo, the court will have a hard time viewing this as proof of adultery." I bit my lip. "I understand, but I can't scream or make a scene." "I know. You just need to snap it from a distance. No contact needed." I nodded, trembling slightly. "I will do it." She looked at me for a long time, then spoke very slowly. "From now until the day of filing, you must stay absolutely calm. No questioning, no asking. Don't let him know you are preparing." "Do you understand?" I pursed my lips. "Yes." When I walked out of the office, The sun was shining brightly. I stood under the eaves, the light hitting my face making me squint. Inside, a strong premonition rose. The road ahead would be very hard, but I had chosen, and I wouldn't turn back. I placed my hand on my belly, inhaling deeply. Baby, Mom is about to start her war. For you, for Mom, and for a future without tears. I left Thea's office with a light head but a heavy heart. Not heavy with despair, but heavy because I knew I was stepping onto a path where, once chosen, I couldn't turn back or change my mind just because of a gentle look or a belated apology from him. There are thresholds where, once crossed, no one can return intact. The sun was harsh, but I felt cold. I stood in front of a cafe, chose a hot milk to drink easily, then found a quiet corner. My hand rested on my belly out of habit, seeming to hear a tiny beat somewhere reminding me to breathe evenly, to stand firm. I opened the small notebook that had accompanied me these past days and added line number 9. 9. Prepare mentally for his reactions. They won't let me leave easily because I am the only one maintaining this family, from finances to emotions. I flipped back through the pages, seeing my handwriting neat but hardening day by day, like footsteps becoming firmer while walking on a rough road. I took a sip of hot milk, trying to swallow the lump in my throat. Evening fell slowly. I caught a ride back to the condo when the sun had softened, but I didn't go inside immediately. I stood in front of the door, holding my hand in the cool air of the corridor, hearing noises echoing from inside. His voice, and someone else's voice. Not a woman's voice. It was my mother-in-law's. I froze for a beat. I knocked. The door opened, cold air from the room rushing out, hitting my face. Mrs. Hazel stood there, arms crossed, eyes scrutinizing me from head to toe. Nathan stood behind her, looking awkward. "Ah, so you know how to come back?" she said, her voice like rubbing salt into an open wound. I walked in, put my shoes aside, trying to keep my voice calm. "Mom, when did you come up?" She sat on the sofa, hands on her thighs, acting as if she were resolving a major clan issue. "I've been here since morning. Where did you go that your phone was off?" I called forever and couldn't get through. I didn't answer directly. I was busy with a few things. Mrs. Hazel glanced at him, then at me, sighing. "Vivian, living like this as a wife is not acceptable. You're pregnant and you leave the house all day. Do you think that looks proper?" My heart skipped a beat. I looked at Nathan. He avoided my eyes. I asked, voice lowering, "How did you know my phone was off, Mom?" She smirked. "Well," Nathan told me, "who else? He was worried about you, so he called me to come see what was going on." I looked at him. He lowered his head. A small gesture, but enough for me to understand. He was afraid something was slipping out of his control. Mrs. Hazel continued, as if she had rehearsed a speech all day. "Lately I see you two are very cold. You are the wife. You must know how to nurture and care. A man going out to entertain clients is normal. Don't suspect random things and make the atmosphere in the house heavy." I clenched my hands by my sides, trying to stay calm. "I don't suspect anything. I just want quiet." "Quiet?" She laughed mockingly. "Pregnant women need to know how to rely on their husbands. If you exhaust him, suppose he gets bored and leaves you and the kid who suffers? You or me?" I heard every word clearly, every sound piercing my chest like needles. But I didn't let myself get angry. I just asked one question, light as a breeze but strong enough to shake the room. "Mom, did you come up here to defend him, or to see if I still have a place in this house?" The air instantly froze. Mrs. Hazel stumbled, her eyes showing something like surprise. Nathan stood up, stammering, "Vivian, what are you saying? Mom is just worried about us." I looked straight at him. "Don't use the word us anymore. I'm tired. I want to rest." Mrs. Hazel frowned. "Are you sulking again?" I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice very calm but clear. "I'm not sulking. It's just that I realized a long time ago I am not considered family in this house. No matter what I do, say, or how much I try." Nathan stepped closer to me. "Vivian, what does that mean?" I looked at him for a long time. In those seconds, the entire 3 years of marriage played like a slow-motion film in my head. The nights waiting for him, the times I took care of everything myself, the times he said don't think nonsense, the times I tried to swallow my grievances to keep the peace. I asked him a single question: "Do you still want to be with me?" He was silent. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, no answer. Mrs. Hazel immediately cut in. "He goes to work to make money for this house, while you just create drama all day. A man is silent because he doesn't want to argue. If he didn't need you anymore, he would have said so long ago." I turned to her, voice soft but firm. "I understand. This house only needs him. It doesn't need me." Nathan startled as I stepped back, holding my hand over my belly to create an invisible distance. "Tonight I will sleep in the other room. Tomorrow I need space to think." Mrs. Hazel opened her mouth to say something, but the look in my eyes at that moment silenced her. Perhaps for the first time in 3 years as a daughter-in-law, she saw I was no longer the submissive woman. I went into the room, closed the door. The sound of small arguments in the living room, Mrs. Hazel scolding him, his voice explaining, "I don't understand what Vivian wants." It all sounded distant, faint. I sat on the edge of the bed, hand trembling slightly as I placed it on my belly. A text message notification sounded. It was Hannah. "Vivian, today I saw that girl come to our condo complex. I think she asked the security guard for your apartment number." I stared at the message, my chest tightening. No longer suspicion, no longer speculation, no longer a story from last night. It was reality marching right up to my front door. I stood up, breathed deeply, and wrote line number 10 inches the notebook. 10. Find final evidence not for revenge, but to close this door clearly and cleanly. I lay down on the bed, pulling the blanket up to my stomach, closing my eyes. In my head rang a sentence I never thought I would say to myself. "Tomorrow will be a different day, and you and the baby won't be weak anymore." I opened my eyes when morning light slipped through the blinds, printing a pale yellow patch on the wall. Last night I slept fitfully, sleep flickering like someone tugging me awake every time I was about to sink down. But strangely, this morning I didn't feel heavy. Spreading in my chest wasn't despair, but a distinct clarity. I sat up slowly, placing my hand on my belly as if checking if the baby was okay. It felt a bit tight, but normal. I smiled slightly, telling myself to keep peace for the baby, no matter how the world around was collapsing. In the living room, I heard someone walking back and forth, probably Mrs. Hazel. I didn't rush to open the door. I sat for a moment, inhaling deeply to stabilize my heart before stepping out to face it. When I opened the door, Mrs. Hazel was standing there, hands on hips, looking as if she had been waiting for me for a long time. Nathan was sitting on the sofa, face down, looking like he had just survived a sleepless night. "You're finally out?" Mrs. Hazel said, voice sharp as if speaking to a debtor. "I stayed another day to see how you two are, but I see if there's a problem you won't speak." "You want to be a wife living like this?" I replied calmly. "I think everyone needs private time." She glared. "You say that again? Vivian, do you think this house is a hotel? Leave when you want, come back when you want?" I was about to answer when Nathan stood up, raising a hand to signal. "Mom, let me talk to Vivian for a bit." She gritted her teeth. "Fine. Talk some sense into her. A pregnant wife leaving all day without caring about her husband." I looked straight into her eyes, not raising my voice but loud enough to stop her. "Mom, I am pregnant. I need quiet. I am not causing trouble, nor am I being disrespectful. Please respect my boundaries." For the first time, I saw my mother-in-law unable to speak immediately. Perhaps not out of respect, but shock that I was no longer politely submissive. Nathan walked over, voice lowered. "Vivian, did something happen last night? Why did you lock the bedroom door?" I looked at him. "Because I was tired." He frowned as if waiting for me to say more, but I didn't. Mrs. Hazel looked at the two of us and sighed loudly. "You two give me a headache. I'm going downstairs to get breakfast. You guys talk." The door closed, her footsteps fading away. Just me and him, and a distance that had never been greater. He stood in front of me, lips pursed, then released a sentence I had heard too many times. "Vivian, stop thinking nonsense." I laughed, but the smile held no joy. "I'm not thinking nonsense. He looked confused. Then, where did you go yesterday? Why didn't you answer the phone? I looked at him slowly. Where I went. Do I need to report to you? He choked. Vivian, I'm your husband. You have to. You're my husband? I cut him off, voice very soft but sharp. Then why do you come home at 1 a.m. every night? Why does your wallet, your shirt smell of strange perfume? Why does your tie have pink powder on it? He started, clearly not thinking I had seen. I didn't let him react, continuing. I don't need to know where you go. I just need to know I can't continue living in a marriage where every question is dismissed as thinking nonsense. His face went pale. Vivian, I didn't do anything wrong. You misunderstand. I looked straight into his eyes. Nathan, where did you go last night? He swallowed, awkward. I went to entertain clients, you know that. I work. I have to meet people. Having women at the table is normal. Sitting and holding hands in a hotel is also normal? I asked, voice light as air. He froze dead. His pupils dilated, mouth slightly open, as if slapped by a truth he didn't think I knew. Vivian. I don't want to hear any more. You don't need to explain. I don't want to hear any more lies. I turned away, walked into the bedroom, and closed the door before he could say anything. As soon as the soundproof door clicked shut, I threw myself on the bed, feeling my heart beat so hard I had to put my hand on my belly to reassure the baby. It's okay. Mom's here. It's okay. I whispered, but my voice shook. I sat still for a few minutes until my breathing stabilized. Then I opened the notebook and added line number 11. 11. Start separating finances and prepare a new place to live. Do not let the baby be born in this house. My phone vibrated. It was Hannah. Vivian. I saw that girl standing in the lobby. Looks like she asked security for your apartment number. I felt a chill run down my spine. I walked to the door, looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. But looking at the lobby camera feed on the intercom screen, I saw an image that tightened my heart. That girl, the one I saw at the hotel, standing in front of the security desk, long hair gently curled, heavy makeup, eyes glancing around as if looking for someone. No need to ask, I knew she was looking for someone. Me, or him, or both. That day, I sat back at the dining table, hand on my belly, heart sinking. That was the moment I understood clearly that the truth was no longer out there. It was heading straight for me, and I couldn't hide, couldn't blindfold myself, couldn't pretend to be strong anymore. I had to face it, but face it intelligently, safely, and for the baby. I closed the notebook, taking a very long deep breath. Tomorrow I would act, and perhaps that would be the day deciding the new life for me and my child. I sat motionless for a long time, after seeing the image of that girl on the lobby screen. Just breathing slowly was difficult. It felt like someone inside my chest was squeezing my heart every beat. Not enough to make me collapse, but enough for me to understand that everything had crossed the line of a normal marriage. She came all the way to the condo to ask for the apartment number. It meant she no longer wanted to stand in the dark. She wanted to step fully into the light. I placed my hand on my belly. The baby kicked gently as if asking, "Mom, what's wrong?" I rubbed my belly to reassure the baby, but really to reassure myself. I couldn't let myself collapse right now. Just one small mistake could put both mother and child in danger. In the living room, I heard his footsteps. Perhaps pacing because of stress. Perhaps he didn't expect me to know. Perhaps he was trying to think of a way to explain. But I didn't want to hear. I didn't want an apology, just a mistake, a forced hug, because all those things were what I used to want to believe, used to cling to. Now, I didn't need them. I opened the bedroom door, stepped out. He stopped in the middle of the room, eyes panicked like a child caught doing wrong. "Vivian, can we talk?" I didn't look straight at him, just said, "I need to go out for a bit." He frowned. "Where are you going? Let me drive you." I replied calmly, "No need. I have an errand." He stepped closer as if wanting to keep me there. "Vivian, about earlier, you misunderstood. She is just an acquaintance." I stopped, looking straight at him for the first time in days. What acquaintance holds hands in a hotel at 10 p.m.? He suddenly went pale, stepping back as if someone yanked all the strength from his legs. You followed me?" I replied, voice so cold I found it strange myself. "I just happened to see, and saw enough to understand." He ran his hands through his hair, rubbing vigorously as if wanting to escape the situation. "Vivian, I was wrong, but I didn't mean to abandon you and the baby. It happened when I was drunk. I was weak." I laughed softly, a smile devoid of emotion. "Were you drunk, or did you choose to be drunk?" He was silent. I turned away, not wanting to prolong a dialogue where the result was already clear. I grabbed my bag, checked the documents, then said one last sentence before leaving. "From today, don't try to explain anymore. I will stay calm until all procedures are done." He seemed awakened by the word procedures. "Vivian, are you really planning to divorce?" I didn't answer. I just walked out the door. Outside the sun was mild, no longer harsh like yesterday, but inside me appeared a feeling very much like a storm approaching. I took a taxi to Thea's office. Seeing me, she put a cup of hot tea on the table, looking at me carefully. "You look very different today. What happened?" I showed her the video from the elevator camera and the image of the girl in the lobby. She wasn't surprised, just nodding as if this was calculated. "So, she wants to go public. That is more beneficial for you than detrimental. We need more evidence that their relationship isn't temporary." I kept my voice calm, but my heart tightened. "You want me to photograph them together again?" "If possible. Just once is enough, but you must be absolutely safe. No contact, no arguing." I nodded. "I understand." She looked at me for a long while, then asked, "Vivian, are you sure? You're pregnant. The baby will need a family, and divorce is always the most painful step." I looked at her, voice low but determined. "I'd rather the child lacks a father than hears its mother crying every day." She nodded slowly. "All right. This afternoon I'll send the draft divorce petition. Review it and add anything." I left the office. On the way back, I stopped by the supermarket to buy a few small things. I didn't want to go straight home, didn't want to see his face right now. I wanted to breathe a little more air, keep my mind from being suffocated by the cramped space in that apartment. But in life, there are things the more you want to avoid them, the more they hit you in the face without mercy. As soon as I pushed the cart off the escalator, I saw two people standing in a corner. A man, a young woman. They stood with their backs to me, but the posture was too familiar. I didn't need to see Nathan's face. I just needed to see the way the girl touched his arm, light, soft, intimate, without reservation. It felt like someone dumped ice water on my head. I didn't approach. I just stood behind a shelf, turned on my camera, zoomed in right at the moment she leaned her head on his shoulder. I pressed the shutter. Once, twice, 3 times. I didn't want to record much. Just enough for the court. When I put the phone down, my hands were shaking. Not from pain, but from a feeling like signing the death warrant of my own old life. I stood there for a few seconds, hand on my belly, breathing deeply continuously until the tightness faded. "It's okay. Mom is doing this so you have a whole life." I turned and pushed the cart toward the checkout, not looking back again. Back at the condo, I went straight into the elevator. The light reflected my face pale, but my eyes shone strangely. I was no longer afraid, no longer clinging. I had only one goal: to see my decision through to the end. I opened my phone and sent the photos to Thea. She replied very quickly. "Enough, Vivian. You did very well. Sending the file tonight." I leaned back against the elevator wall, closing my eyes. An old chapter was closing, a new chapter preparing to open. But before stepping into that chapter, I knew I had to face one final thing, a conversation that neither he nor I could dodge anymore. When the elevator opened at my floor, I stood still for a few seconds, not stepping out immediately. The hallway was empty, white lights casting a cold color on the tiles. That silence made me realize this moment was like the final boundary before I stepped into the dialogue that would decide my whole life. I took a deep breath, adjusted my breathing, then walked toward the apartment. My hand shook slightly, putting the key in the lock. Not from fear, but because I knew clearly that after today there was no road back. The door opened, and I saw him sitting at the dining table. The whole house was unusually quiet. No TV, no typing sound, no voice of Mrs. Hazel scolding, just him sitting there, hands clasped, eyes looking like they were about to shatter but still trying to hold calm. I closed the door behind me, took off my shoes very gently, and walked in. No one spoke for a few seconds. The space between us was heavy, full of unspoken questions, full of things that had rotted long ago. "Where were you all afternoon?" he asked, voice hoarse. I didn't answer that question. I just put my bag on the chair, sat opposite him, hand on my belly as an instinctive reflex. "Nathan, we need to talk," I said, voice so calm I found it strange. He nodded. "I want to talk too." I looked straight into his eyes, not dodging, not trembling, not seeking justification anymore. "Nathan, when did you and that girl start?" He stiffened, lips trembling slightly. "Vivian." "That matter. I don't need to hear you explain." I cut him off. "I just need to know when it started." He lowered his head, hands clenching. "About 3 months ago." 3 months. I closed my eyes for a second. 3 months ago was exactly when I was severely stressed at 8 weeks pregnant, having to go to checkups alone. When he first refused to take me because of an important meeting, I opened my eyes, calmer than I thought. "I understand." He panicked as if that sentence was scarier than any reproach. "Vivian, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I was weak, but I never wanted to leave you, never wanted to leave the baby. I just slipped." I looked at him for a long time. "Nathan, do you know that when people truly regret, they don't use the word slipped?" He choked. "Vivian, don't divorce. I can't lose the baby." I placed my hand on the table, gentle but clear. "I won't stop you from seeing the baby. But letting the baby grow up in a marriage like this is something I will not allow." He jumped up, losing composure. But seeing me gently place a hand on my belly, he immediately stepped back. Clearly, no matter how wrong he was still afraid of agitating me. "Vivian, you're pregnant. Don't decide big things when your emotions aren't stable." I shook my head. "I've thought very clearly. I am more awake than ever." He looked at me, eyes turning red. "I know I'm wrong. I accept your blame, your hate, your punishment. But don't divorce. Don't give up so fast. Don't take away my right to be a father in a complete family." I don't know why, but that sentence made me feel sadder than angry. "You're afraid of losing the title of father in a complete family, but are you afraid of losing me?" I asked. "Nathan, if there was no baby, would you try to keep me?" He was silent. That silence said more than any answer. I gripped the armrest to stay calm. "You are silent because you know the answer. And I know it too." He slumped into the chair like someone drained of strength. "Vivian, I'm afraid. Afraid to confess the thing I don't dare face." I took a deep breath. "Nathan, that night when I saw you with her at the hotel, I understood clearly. The love I had for you isn't whole anymore. It cracked long ago. I just tried to patch it. But the more I patch, the more it tears." He held his head, saying nothing. I continued. "I didn't choose divorce because of that girl. I chose it for myself and for the baby." Finally, he lifted his face, eyes red-rimmed. "What do you want from me? Say it. I want freedom." I spoke very quietly, but every word cut the air. "And I want the baby to grow up without seeing its mother cry every night." The room fell dead silent. Afternoon light shone through the blinds, casting shadows on his gray, tired face. He asked tremblingly, "Vivian, are you that determined?" I didn't answer immediately. I stood up, went to the table, opened my bag, took out the stack of photos I took at the supermarket. I placed them gently on the table in front of him. He looked at them, face turning white. "Vivian." I didn't let him finish. "I don't need you to explain. I don't need you to apologize. I need you to sign." He looked at me for a long time, as if looking at a stranger. I said the final sentence. "Nathan, we have both gone too far to turn back. After a long silence long enough for me to hear every beat of my heart in my chest, he exhaled deeply, like someone dropping a weapon after a battle he couldn't win. "Okay," he whispered. "If that is what you choose, I will sign." I closed my eyes for a second. No joy, no gloating, just a pain that had reached its end. I turned into the room, closed the door, hand on my belly. "Baby, from here, Mom will take you out of this life, step by step, in the safest way." I sat on the edge of the bed, opened the small notebook, and wrote line number 12. 12. Find a new place before filing. Don't let the baby grow up in a place full of heavy silence. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time after the conversation, feeling like my heart had been drained of vitality but hadn't completely collapsed. Perhaps because this pain wasn't new. It had accumulated for so long that now, when everything was exposed, I only felt cold and empty. I placed my hand on my belly, silently apologizing to the baby for these unstable tremors. But then I reassured myself. I was doing all this not to leave, but to protect the baby in the only way I could. Late that afternoon, when the sun turned honey-colored, I stood up to wash my face, changed into a comfortable dress, then texted Thea. "I decided to find a house. Do you have a reliable broker contact?" She replied immediately. "Yes. Sending number now. Vivian, you are doing the right thing." Receiving the broker's number, I called, voice still slightly trembling. "Hi, Mike. I need to find an apartment. 1 bedroom. Quiet, good security. I want to move this week if possible." He asked a few questions, then said he would send a list within the hour. I hung up, feeling my heart both sink and lift a beat. Sink for the loss, lift for the relief. I looked around the room. The vanity table, I chose the wood color for myself. The curtains, I hemmed myself. The large gray and white bed I once thought would be where my child took its first steps. All those things were still there, but the meaning had died long ago. I left the room, walked out to the living room. He was still sitting on the sofa, posture almost unchanged, hands clasped, eyes empty. A man sinking in the feeling of losing control for the first time in 3 years of marriage. He looked up when he saw me. "Can you sit down?" I stood a distance away, not approaching. "I can stand. If you have something to say, say it." He pursed his lips, voice hoarse and weak. "I'm sorry. I really am sorry. I can't justify it." I was silent, waiting for him to finish. "But, can you give me another chance? Not for me, but for the baby. I want the baby to have a complete family." I looked at him very slowly, very deep. A complete family isn't a form, it's a feeling. You don't have that feeling with me anymore, and neither do I. So what do you want to keep? He choked, unable to answer. "Vivian, I will end it with her. I swear I will never see her again." That sentence should have softened my heart, but it made my heart tighten with a sad constriction. "Nathan, if you truly loved me, you wouldn't have let her step into your life from the start. If you truly feared losing the baby, you wouldn't have created gaps for the baby to grow up in insecurity." He bowed his head like someone about to cry. "I know, but I still want to keep this family." I looked down at my belly. For me, this family ended the moment I stood behind that partition at the hotel that night. Shoulders slumping, I turned into the kitchen to pour a glass of warm water to stay calm. He stood behind, voice shaking. "Do you really not love me anymore?" I stopped. "I want to say yes. I used to love you enough to ignore so much hurt. But that love died the night you held someone else's hand." I said nothing further, and silence was the cruelest answer. He retreated, sitting down on the chair, covering his face with his hands. For the first time I saw him cry, but I didn't have enough space left in my heart to feel his pain. My phone vibrated. Mike the broker sent a message. "Have a unit matching your request. Want to see it tomorrow afternoon?" I typed, "Yes, tomorrow 3 p.m. I put the phone away, went back into the room, opened the closet, pulled out a small suitcase, not to move today but to prepare my mind. When I closed the suitcase, I heard him say behind my back, "Vivian, I will miss you so much." I closed my eyes, inhaling deeply. The sadness in that sentence didn't make me weak, it only made me understand one more thing. Sometimes people only cherish what they have when they've lost it. I turned to look at him one last time for the day. Take care of yourself. When the paperwork is done, we will discuss co-parenting. The baby needs both mom and dad, but doesn't need a fake family. He nodded, eyes wet. Vivian, thank you for loving me truly once. I smiled slightly, a vast but calm smile. I used to love you, but from here on, I will love the baby more than anything else. Saying that, I went back into the room, closed the door. I put my hand on my belly. Baby, we have reached the end of this road. Ahead is a new beginning. I opened the notebook, writing the final line in the plan 13. Complete divorce, start a new life, peaceful, and don't look back.